And can we welcome, please, to the stage Webb, who's going to talk about Neurotribes. Thank you.
Hi. Here's a little baby, 1, 2, 3. But when he grows up, who the hell will he be? The thing is, we haven't got any idea really, and that's pretty weird because we keep having babies. So, this is the same person about 7, still a sweet little chap, and here he is in his late 20s. Now, when he was born he had blonde hair. Here he's got black hair, so even physically you would never know how he was going to turn out. You know, forget the personality, forget the any other characteristics, but he doesn't look like he did when he was a baby. I won't say I was disappointed, but he is different, very different. Now, I've spent a lot of my time trying to make sense of the world. So, I used to think the world was a cat and Australia was a ball. I've got over that. Yeah, so I was very interested in psychology right from when I was a teenager. I wouldn't say it was a passion, I would say it was a gateway into understanding how we think, why we think, what we do, etc. And I think maybe my passion was really making a futile attempt to understand or get to the truth of stuff, okay? It's impossible, but you know, I've tried. Now that interest possibly led me into TEFL teaching. If you don't know what TEFL teaching is, that's teaching English as a foreign language. On the other hand, it could have been the exotic locations which encouraged me to do that job because they were quite exotic. I like this quote. Would you like to read it, or shall I read it to you? So, I went into many classrooms, and every time I went in, I was confronted with the perplexities of human behaviour, and I started to realise that people were different. Now, for someone who's been interested in psychology since they were a teenager, you might think that's not much of a discovery, but it's the extent of the differences which is interesting, and the fact that many people individually think that everyone is like them. So, you know, it's not so silly perhaps. Not this woman here, but someone similar. She was a student of mine, and I don't know if anyone knows about English teaching, but you put people in pairs and groups and get them talking, you know, trying to recreate real life. And the idea is that they listen to somebody else and then respond. But this girl, not this one, but you know, a girl, she didn't seem to participate at all. So I was a bit confused about this, and I took her to a bar. You could do that in those days. And we sat down and chatted for a bit, and I said, well, I broke my leg a couple of months ago. And she said, nothing. And I said, I've just said I broke my leg. You're not going to say anything. She said, well, I'm not interested in other people's lives. So, there you go. Maybe she was, you know, Asperger's or something. And I was beginning to understand that not everybody is interested in what people do and say. So that was a big learning thing. Then I ended up in the Middle East, and I don't know how I got the job. I should say that when I went into English language teaching, I actually, at school, got an O-level pass in my English exams, and that is scraping through just. So, you know, having gone on to be an English teacher is quite strange. Then, here, I was working in government schools in Bahrain and Qatar, advising the government on how to teach English. So it's strange how one's life progresses on the basis of very little. But this was a fabulous, how can I say, fabulous something. It was a, what was it? It was, for someone who's interested in psychology, it was fabulous because I could talk to the kids. I could go into schools from 5-year-olds to 19-year-olds. I could teach in the schools. I could talk to the teachers. And for 10 years, 5 years in Bahrain and 5 years in Qatar, I just went in and out of schools doing whatever I wanted. I mean, what a dream job. Years later, older and wiser because of all my fabulous experiences of life, I didn't meet him. Do you know who he is? Anyone recognise him? Famous guy. Rory Bremner, well done. I don't know if anyone's heard, he did a radio program about 6 years ago. He was trying to find out whether he had ADHD because it was in the family and he'd heard that it's something that's transmitted. He also did a TV program about last year, I think, still searching for the same thing. I don't know why it's taken him so long, but anyway. So my wife heard the radio program and she kind of listened more and more intrigued, and she came home and said, "My God, that's you. That's why you're so weird." Right, now, I have got my t-shirt on, I don't know if you can read it, not weird, just different, okay? So that's where we're going. Now, the thing about having ADHD is you do say things which perhaps you shouldn't say. You send emails to people that you shouldn't have sent them to, you should have sent to someone else for, that kind of thing. So 6 months later I was fired, and I had to face these kind of people, very, difficult people, and I thought I'd play the disability card and say, "Hey, I've got ADHD," just based on the fact that my wife had heard a program on ADHD. And of course they said, "Well, prove it." So I went straight to the doctor, he sent me to a consultant, and hey presto, I found I had ADHD. So that was quite a shock in many ways, but because I was 62 at the time, I think. But new life beckoned. I ended up as a freelance publisher rather than working for a company that I worked for 32 years. And for the first time in my life, I found that I was with my own tribe. These are people down here who really understand what it is to be a bit different. Okay? The first time in my life. So I'm really pleased I got fired. It was great. Now you might wonder when we're going to get to the point, but this is an insight into the ADHD brain. It goes off in all directions, it's never sure where it's going, but we will get it under control. So what's normal? We need to know that. I've said ADHD, what's normal? Well, it's not this. These are the other normals. I don't know if you can read them, but basically here you've got dyspraxia, dyscalculia, dyslexia, ADHD here, all of it got a thing here, look, there you go. That's autistic spectrum disorder, Tourette syndrome. So these are all different normals. I like to think of them as different normals rather than abnormal, as I am this one here. So that's what I mean by neurotribes. We're all part of a tribe. There's the normal tribe and there's the other different tribes. So I'm one of those different tribes, and I think probably quite a few of you here, bearing in mind that most of you come from St Leonards, are also one of this tribe. I don't know which one, but note, you might not be able to read, but it's all focus on difficulties, and that's a shame because having ADHD and a lot of these other things do actually bring benefits. I don't know if anyone came to the talk in February. A woman had an autistic child. Very, very difficult. It was a really difficult journey. But when she gave the talk, she was very clear that it had brought a huge amount of joy to her life, and you can find joy in some strange places sometimes. But who wants labels? These are all labels, and it's very strange how people who are, how can I say, helping people who have got a few problems, they tell those people that labels are bad. Whereas the people who have the problem actually usually love labels. Having said that, there are 297 categories of mental disorders, that's quite a few. I don't like to think of ADHD as a mental disorder, I should say, but a personality trait, all right? It's not a disorder, it's not, I'm not mental, okay? But this, I don't know if you know about this, it categorises all the different people, or not the people, but the different ways of behaving, and there are 297 categories, and people say, well, what is this about labelling? It's all about the pharmaceutical companies, blah, 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 blah. However, when people are labelled, they say, phew, I knew there was something wrong, now I get it. And that was my reaction when I was finally diagnosed. It's like all of that shit that was going on in the past, people saying I was careless, people saying this, people saying that. Fine, that's why. So, most people are pleased in the end. This is someone, this was from an article in The Guardian last year, and I think the title was, I assumed it was all my fault, something like that. And I don't know if you can read it. I still frequently doubt that I have ADHD and sometimes believe I'm just fooling everyone in an attempt to excuse my forgetfulness, messy nature, issues with planning ahead, and problems with completing projects. Okay? So, you have to take responsibility for your life, but you don't have to blame yourself for what goes wrong. It's not the same thing. Now, so, ADHD, what is it? This is a good place to start. His name is Andrew Lewis. He's a writer and coach, director of Simply Wellbeing, and he has ADHD. In my experience, people with ADHD are always the best for explaining stuff, and he confirms this here. Research to date is limited with poor sample groups, meaningless tests of creativity. Worse, most ADHD research is derived from a subset of the ADHD population, hyperactive boys. They are the visible tip of the ADHD iceberg. So he's pretty dismissive of the medical profession, and I think probably he's right. So he proposes an integrated model of ADHD. Nice, integrated, I don't know what it means, but that's what it is. The overview is an understimulated mind, weak executive functions, and dominant right brain thinking. Now, if you look at that, you probably notice that some things are not too good, like an understimulated mind. When I was young, my mind was pretty unstimulated, I can assure you. I found ways of stimulating it since, and that's what we do. We find ways of, making up ground. So, unpacking this, an understimulated mind, interest-based focus, memory shortfalls, stimulation-seeking behaviours. And you can again see there are some things there which perhaps are not what you want your children to have. Stimulation-seeking behaviours could be taking drugs, it could be setting fire to houses, it could be anything. So there are problems. Weak executive functions, less self-control, poor sense of time. My God, is it 15 minutes already? Right, there you go. So, we're off. We're off. It's tough with ADHD. Believe me, it's like being in a desert without knowing why you're there and looking for stimulation. But, classic yin-yang situation, if you can get things in balance, everything's cool. He goes on to say the main problem comes from low interest. Now, many of you might have this, homework, tax returns, etc. But for someone with ADHD, it is 10 times worse. It is massively problematic, and it's all down to dopamine. Reward deficiency syndrome makes it difficult to muster the willpower to do mundane tasks, even important ones, if they don't pack enough dopamine up. So I find it difficult to do mundane tasks. So, where are we? Let's. This is what the. I don't know if you can read that. I think this is bad. You should see the inside of my head, right? And that's pretty accurate, I think. So, what's normal? As humans evolved into highly complex societies, the need for acceptance of social constructs like government, laws, marriage, religion grows. There was an evolutionary forcing factor for compliance. And this is where we're back to St. Leonards, because people here tend to be non-compliant, but the majority of the population needs to be. So there is this theory that, if I can see that, there is a theory that the evolutionary purpose of people with ADHD was to maintain progress, where the rest of the population was just sitting around, just getting on with whatever. Another theory, we're hunters in a farmer's world, and that is because previously we were hunters, and we needed certain skills like hyperfocus and various things which were attributable to people with ADHD, things that we have. Then we became farmers, and so, you know, we're kind of a leftover, useless part of something that was useful before and isn't useful anymore. Anyway, what of the future? Now, the geek is the new sexy. They now rule the world. As you know, they, Facebook and all this stuff, it's all invented by these people, and they have had a massive impact. They used to be considered, people with autism, whatever. They were considered, stick them in a mental home. Now they rule the world. I was talking to my son, and this was real serendipity. He said it's weird that where are we? Somewhere here? No, come forward. He said, innovate, challenge, and disrupt is the new management theory. Okay? It's not quite there here, innovate, evolve, optimize, but it's all part of the same thing. So, evolution, apparently, or maybe according to other theories, has maintained a small percentage of the population with ADHD just to keep pushing things forward and a generally compliant society. If he's right, management theory is now promoting innovate, evolve, optimize, disrupt, whatever. Maybe we are rolling out ADHD to the majority of the population. So be very afraid. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Rod. Does anybody have any questions for Rod? I mean, given the audience, given we're all based in St. Leonards, I think there are some searching questions to be asked. Can you any questions for Rod before we go into breaks? No, yes, it is working. Yeah. Any questions?
Before I have a drink.
Yeah. Question down at the front. Yes. Ryan's giving you this.
Hi there.
Bit closer.
Hi there.
Try this. We'll get closer.
It's just a moment.
Say it again, because I've got your name now. Hi, Jordan.
Rod, if you repeat the question.
The same. Is that better?
Yes.
All right, Rod, has known about your...
This one.
Has knowing about your condition helped you develop strategies to manage certain aspects?
Well, this is a very interesting thing. The one thing I feel very proud about in my life is that when I read about strategies that you need, I realised that I developed them already. So I feel very proud that I did that. And if you don't develop the strategies, you you quite likely end up in prison, or a drug addict, or a drunk. Well, I do drink. Yeah, you need strategies to deal with it, and certainly I've found some. My wife thinks I haven't found enough, but, yeah, you do. Strategies? Well, like bringing a clock, that I can actually see. I have no sense of time, no sense of the future. My short-term memory is shit, so I record a lot of stuff. I don't know, there's just so many things. I can't really begin. I could have a conversation, but if you really want to know, I could have a conversation. But there are many, many things. I get bored easily, so if I'm in a bored situation, I have a book with me, or a magazine or something like that. I'm very lucky that I'm interested in people, so we are interest focused, so therefore the most important thing is to find interest. So once you've found interest, you're okay. If you haven't found interest in anything, you're stuffed. Is that right?
Excellent. Thank you. Yeah. Any more questions? I know hands, but I can't. If I miss you, apologies. I don't think I can see. Well, can you see any hands?
No, I'm very disappointed, but I'm going to call on someone. So, Leon, you have a question, surely.
That's.
Where is he? There he is.
Yes. Yeah.
This is my stepson. Still coming to terms with me.
You mentioned some of your coping strategies.
Yeah.
Perhaps you can tell us about some of the ways your ADHD experience has helped you, sort of superpowers that's implanted on you.
Well, one of the things that a lot of people don't understand about people with ADHD, they are constantly, they can't concentrate, but they can actually hyperfocus. So, hyperfocusing is a way of calming down because your head's full of stuff all the time. And what I've discovered is that the best thing for me to do in the morning is to get up and start doing some focused work on a computer or something like that, editing, anything focused, and then I will calm down. If I don't do that, the rest of the day is not good. So there are ways that you don't need to meditate, but you can do something for which you have to hyper-focus, like editing.
Thank you very much. So if there are no more questions, I can't see any hands waving. Oh, there's a hand shot up. There is. One final question, and then we'll take a break. You pulled it closer to you than I'm pulled. And Rod, you might need to repeat the question.
Okay.
Yeah. My husband is convinced that I have ADHD. I don't think I've got the hyper bit, so I'm too tired for that. But I was just wondering, do you think there's a difference between women presenting with it to men? Because it's quite different Asperger's for men and women.
Yeah, I don't know the difference. All I know is that a lot of women do have ADHD, and hyperactivity is absolutely not a necessary condition. You can have ADHD without hyperactivity. So, yeah, we'll talk afterwards, and I'll diagnose you if you like.
Looking forward to it. Thanks so much.
So if there are any further questions, if there are no further questions, yeah, there's one over there. Last one. Yeah.
Hello? Just because we're in an era of diagnosis in which people like yourself, possibly later in this year, were diagnosed with ADHD, when you look back at historical figures, does anybody stands out to you as being quite obviously ADHD?
Yeah, that's really interesting because there's a lot of, how can I say, defrocking, I don't know, people in the past that they weren't what they're cracked up to be. And that often is because they had a side of their character which, in order to be famous, they also had deep flaws. And I can't think of any off off my head. Huh? What's Trump? Not ADHD, something else. No. I should say that you might be interested to know that of kids who have ADHD, roughly a third just it goes away. Roughly another third learn coping strategies, and the other third go to prison. Sad, isn't it? So it is a very, well, prison, drug addicts, whatever. So it's really important to understand it and to help people who don't understand what the problem is. But I'm sorry, I will. Yeah, just go on. I'll talk to you later. I'm sure it'll pop into my head. Yeah. Good question.
A number of historic characters probably would have been.
Almost certainly. Yeah.
Can we thank Rod again for